In this video, we are going through all the questions, okay, including both high level and also the standard level of the IB economics for the new syllabus. So I'm going through all paper 1, paper 2, and paper 3 questions. Okay, enjoy. Okay, so we are going to do first of all we are going to do the paper 1. Okay, we are going to do paper 1 high level question. Okay, we'll start with question 1A about the asymmetric information in the market. Number 1, okay, first of all we must give definition. So you can take a look at the definition in the screen. Okay, so this definition is talking about asymmetric information refers to there are two parties. Okay, there are total two parties, but one is having more information than the others. Say for example, the sellers. Okay, the sellers will have more information than the buyers. Now I'm going to give you one example to illustrate this idea. So you may take a look at the example in the cartoon. Okay, so in the cartoon, in the right bottom, you can see that. Okay, so the seller knows. Okay, there are a lot of defects. Okay, there are a lot of defects in this second-hand car. Okay, so it only worth 2,000. Okay, but the buyers do not have such kind of information. Okay, like all the defects in the car, so the buyers might think this one worth 3,000. Okay, so you can see that in this example, okay, we would say sellers have more knowledge of the goods that include the defects in the second-hand car. Okay, so you must give example to illustrate the idea of the meaning of asymmetric information. Okay, so that's all for 1A. Let's go to part B. Okay, so part B would be about managing common assets resources. Again, and of course, okay, we have to give the definition of the common assets resources. Okay, say for example, a Nile. Okay, so that means a river. Okay, so a river. Okay, so you can see. Okay, there are river across in different countries. Of course. Okay, then different people. Okay, in different countries, they may have to enjoy the river. Okay, so and then we have to explain. There are lots of approaches. Okay, to manage it. Okay, so you can see that in the guidelines. Okay, there are a lot. So I'm going to put the numbers. Okay, like legislation number 1. Okay, number 2. Okay, you manage it on your own. Number 3, trade. Okay, trade it. Number 4, taxes. Okay, and number 5 is called the international agreement. I'm going to talk about it later on, like the Niles agreement. Okay, so this one I will talk about later on. Okay, so and then you have to put diagrams. Okay, because when we talk about common assets resources, there are always over production and over consumption. Okay, why is that? Okay, because because the cost is not bared by solely the consumers or producers. Okay, so there are always overconsumption and production. Okay, so think about it. Okay, say for example, there's a river. Okay, so the river. Okay, you do not have to bear the cost of managing the river. Okay, so a lot of people would overuse the river. And when you draw the diagram, make sure there are things you have to draw, including showing that number 1, MPC is greater than the MSC. Okay, and the second thing is that the equilibrium quantity is the market equilibrium quantity is larger than the efficiency level. Okay, so we can see that there is over production and consumption. Okay, so this is what the examiners is looking for. Okay, so we will move on to the evaluation. Okay, so when you evaluate the above policies, okay, you of course you have to talk about the strengths and the limitations in addressing these policies. Now, say for example, okay, when we deal with negative externality, of course, okay, we may make use of carbon tax. Okay, we may make use of carbon tax. Is one of the way to do it. That means okay, we will shift the MPC okay to the MSC plus T. Okay, so the tax would help us to shift. Okay, so let's mark it down in the right hand side. Okay, so the tax will help us to shift the MPC curve to MPC plus T. Okay, So this 𝗵𝗵𝗴𝗵𝗃 plus t indeed is equal to the MSC. Okay, such that this would bring it will bring the quantity at the market drop to the quantity efficient level. Okay, so this would be the rationale of common tax. Now, this is the strength of it. Of course, there are limitations. Okay, so after we put in the strength, we have to put in the limitations. The limitations of the carbon tax, it would be we do not know the exact amount, what amount of tax we have to put, okay, to make the MSC and MPC equalize. So this would be the limitations. Okay, so these are the strength and limitations. Last but not the least, okay, you have to give some real world examples. Okay, as I said before, I would like to use international agreement of the Nile Agreement, okay, to show you what are the Nile agreements and how can international agreements deal with it. Now you can see that there is Nile, okay, between there are two countries, okay, between this one, Sudan and Egypt. Okay, so I would like to highlight this one. Okay, this is the Nile. Okay, so it's a common river, okay, between Sudan and Egypt. Okay, so you can see that this one indeed, that's what we call common access resources. Okay, so how can these two countries manage these rivers? Okay, which is a kind of common managed resources. Okay, so the method as mentioned. Okay, so this agreement, the Nile Agreement, we call it international collaboration. Okay, international collaboration. Okay, that means we call this agreement as Nile Agreement. My guess is you can simply refer to a textbook or refer here. Okay, so in this Nile Agreement, it is agreed that two countries, Egypt and Sudan, so they agreed to use a certain amount of cubic meters of the river respectively. Okay, so this is what we call the Nile Agreement, a kind of international collaboration to manage the common access resources, which is the river Nile. All right, okay, we are going to move on to question 2. Okay, so this is also the high level question. Okay, paper 1, question 2a. So we have to talk about two tools to talk about expansionary monetary policy. Okay, now of course, number 1, we have to give the definition of an expansionary monetary policy. Okay, so that means they would make C or investment expenditure increase, and then the aggregate demand would increase. This would boost the real output of the economy. Okay, so this is what we call expansionary monetary policy. Okay, of course there are a lot of goals to do it. So I'm going to talk about one by one. Okay, so the number one, OMO. Okay, OMO is about the government buy bonds. Okay, from the central bank. Okay, from the central bank. So after that, after they buy the money bonds from the central bank, the money supply would increase, the R would drop, the interest rate would drop, and the C and I would increase. So what's next? So you have to go back to here. Can you see that? Okay, so what's next? You have to go back to here. So this is what we call open market operations. Okay, the another one we call it minimum reserve ratio. Okay, so that means the money required. Okay, the money required to for the bank to keep it as reserve. Okay, so when the reserve ratio drop, so when the ratio drop, so the bank would lend out more money. Okay, the bank loan would increase. Okay, they will lend out more. The money supply will increase. And then what's next? Okay, when the money supply increase, you have to go back to here. Okay, when the money supply increase, you have to go back to here. So money supply increases, interest rate drop. Okay, consumption expenditure and investment expenditure increases, and then aggregate demand increases. Blah blah blah. Okay. So I would like to go through one more. Okay, one more. We call it quantitative easing. Okay, so quantitative easing. Okay, that means printing money in large quantity. Okay, so printing money supply increase. So again, when money supply increase, you have to go back to here. Okay, money supply increases, interest rate drop. Okay, blah 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 blah. Before we move on, okay, so we have to draw a diagram showing that to show the interest rate falling, or the ADAS diagram. So I've put the interest rate falling diagram, okay, in the left hand side. Okay, so when you draw this diagram, okay, make sure that, okay, the money supply curve is vertical. Okay, so once it shifts to the left, so you can see that the nominal interest rate will fall. Okay, so this one in the y-axis, you have to show that is a fall in nominal interest rate. So this is the first diagram, okay, that you might draw, okay, in the money market. The second diagram that you may show is about the ADAS diagram, which is illustrated here. Okay, so as mentioned, the AD curve, okay, the AD curve will shift. The AD curve will shift to the right hand side. So you can see that after the AD curve shift to the right hand side, the aggregate output would increase in the short run. Okay, so there are two diagrams that you may draw, either one or both. Okay, we are moving on to 2B. You have to evaluate the effectiveness to achieve no employment. Okay, so what is it mean by low employment? Of course, we have to define it. Also for monetary policy, you have to define it too. Okay, so let's start with monetary policy definition. Please refer to question 2A. So we have defined it. How about low employment? My guess is, okay, when Y increases, okay, when real output increases, the demand for labor would increase, right? Because this is a kind of derived demand. Okay, so and then the unemployment rate would drop. Okay, the unemployment rate would drop. So I guess this is what we call low unemployment. Okay, it depends on the real output. Okay, can it be stimulate? Okay, so next, okay, we have to explain. Okay, we have to explain, okay, all the impacts, okay, with ADAS diagram. Okay, now I would like to talk about it. We have indeed illustrate this ADAS diagram in question 2A. Okay, so including growth. Okay, for this growth, okay, that means a wide increase. Okay, wide increase. And also for the inflation, okay, we have also talked about in question 2A. So that means, okay, price level increases. Okay, so you may refer to the diagram in question 2A. So synthesis. Okay, so we have to talk about the strengths and the limitations. Okay, say for example, the strengths of it would be about it's easy to change and flexible and does not burden, okay, government budgets. Okay, compared. Okay, so we have to make it clear. Okay, so this is would not give a heavy burden to the government. We have to compare this one to another policy. We call it fiscal policy. Okay, so fiscal policy, that means T minus G, okay, taxation minus government expenditure. So compared to this fiscal policy, like raising government expenditure, okay, it does not burden the government budget, okay, when you raise the money supply. Next, so when we talk about the weaknesses, for the weaknesses, I will also talk about it later on in this essay. It's about, okay, when the consumer confidence is low, okay, so it might be ineffective, especially when it comes to, okay, close to zero interest rate. Okay, depends. Okay, so and then we have to talk about real world example. Okay, so I will talk about the zero interest rate methods. Okay, so let's take a look at this diagram. In this diagram, you can show that you can see that when the money supply increases in the first stage, of course, the demand for money will increase, right? Okay, you can see that. Okay, but on the other hand, okay, next, okay, when you try to increase the money supply further, the interest rate won't drop. Can you see that? So I would like you to read the diagram very, very clearly. In the first stage, the interest rate will drop. But however, okay, under the liquidity trap, the interest rate will remain unchanged even though the money supply increases. Okay, so there's no change in the interest rate. So we call it liquidity trap. Okay, so that's what we've talked about here. Okay, this is the limitations of monetary policy. Next, we have to give a real-world example to illustrate this kind of idea. So I would like to talk about, for the real-world example, I would like to quote the case in Japan. So can you take a look at the diagram in in the right bottom corner, as you can see, this is a kind of quantitative easing. Okay, that means money supply will increase due to printing money. But however, okay, when there is a lot of money print, you can see that the monetary base keep increasing, but still the consumer prices, the C, cannot be boosted. So I'm going to mark it down. Okay, so when the MS increases in the liquidity trap, the R will remain unchanged, then the C will remain unchanged. So then the Y will remain unchanged. Then you cannot boost. You cannot boost Y. Then the demand for labor won't change, right? So I'm going to keep writing. Okay, so this is so the demand for labor, won't change. Okay, the demand for labor will not change, and the unemployment rate, cannot be lower down. Okay, so this is a real world example. Okay, Japan. So we will continue. This is paper 1, high level. Okay, question 3A. So in this question, we are going to talk about the depreciation. How would it affect the country's current account? Of course, first of all, we have to give definition of two important terms. Okay, number one. Okay, so the meaning of depreciation. So this is about the value of the currency drop. Okay, the value of currency drop. This is the definition of depreciation. Next, we have to give another definition for current account balance. And that there are 4 things included in the current account, including visible trade plus invisible trade. That means services. Okay, services, and then we have to add up. So there are other like net transfer. Okay, is also one of it, and also the net income factor aboard. Okay, so these 4. So there are 4 kinds of items included in the current account balance. Next, okay, so we have to talk about how it might affect the current account balances. Indeed, you have to think about it. So before we talk about in details, we have to talk about some basic economic stuff. That is, okay, so when the price drop, like a depreciation, of course people would buy more, right? Because this is derived from the law of demand. The question is how would it affect the total revenue? Okay, the total revenue, which is equal to P times Q. Now, as you can see, P drops, but Q raised. So the total revenue changes, and that is not certain. Okay, because we do not know the percentage changes of the price and quantity. Okay, so what if under one condition, okay, so there's one condition that making the total revenue would raise. Okay, that is the percentage drop in price is smaller than the percentage increase in quantity. Okay, in this sense, then okay, the total revenue will raise. Okay, so we call this this condition, we call it elastic. Okay, elastic. So this is the basic economic concepts. Okay, so right now in the international trade, of course, okay, things will become more complicated. Okay, so in the market guideline, okay, it talk about relative elasticities. Okay, so what does it even mean? Okay, so it means, okay, you cannot just talk about, okay, when value of currency drop, of course the export becomes cheaper, the export increase, right? Now on the other hand, the import becomes expensive, the import will drop. So how would it affect the current account? So it depends on the relative changes of those exports and imports. Okay, so this makes things more complicated in international trade, because we have to take a look both export and import. So think about it. So how can we do that? So we have to make use of a condition called the Marshall-Linear condition. Okay, so in this Marshall-Linear condition, it talks about that you have to look at the diagram in the left bottom corner. Okay, so it talks about it depends on the elasticity. Okay, so in this one, okay, you can see that when depreciation occurs, okay, the current account balance drop. Okay, so this is not met with the condition. Okay, So that is the elasticity is not high enough. As you can see, okay, to achieve favorable result, the elasticity needs to be high enough. Okay, so on the other hand, you can see that here, okay, here in this sense, okay, so right now the elasticity is high enough. Okay, that means the condition is met. Okay, so when the Marshall-Linear condition is met, then okay, then it will bring a favorable result. Okay, so you can see that in this curve it's look like look like a J. Can you see that look like a capital J? Okay, so in this diagram is called the J curve. Okay, the J curve showing that the depreciation, okay, how would the depreciation affect the current account balances. So I would put down the details. Okay, so according to the J curve, so in this theory, okay, first of all, at first the current account would suffer, okay, would suffer from unfavorable balances. Okay, but when time goes by, okay, so people know that, oh, so right now there's a depreciation. Okay, so and then when the conditions is met, and then when time goes by, so there will be a favorable effects on the current account. So it depends on the timing. Okay, at first, okay, the current account will be worsened. After time goes by, the current account will become much better. Okay, so this is the the theory of the J curve. Okay, it's about, okay, when would be the Marshall-Linear condition be met. Okay, another diagram, okay, another diagram that you may draw is about the ADAS ADAS diagram. So as you can see that, okay, when there is depreciation, okay, usually, okay, the export would be stimulate, okay, because the price becomes cheaper, right? So let's mark it down. Okay, so the export would increases. Okay, the export will increase while the import would drop, so making the net export increases, so boosting the AD curve, shifting to the right. So this is another theory that you can talk about. Okay, here we go. This is the last question in the paper 1's high level. Okay, so in this question 3b, okay, question 3b high level, we have to talk about the possible implications of the persistent current account deficit. First of all, we have to define, okay, the meaning of current account deficit. Of course, that means the receipt, okay, the receipts, okay, from the current account, of course, is less than the outflow. Okay, so the inflow is less than the outflow. We call it a current account deficit. So what are the possible implications? Okay, that means say for example, okay, so there are a lot of implications, like the exchange rate may depreciate, okay, or interest rate may rise to attract financial capital to pay for a deficit. Now you have to be very careful. For this one, the first one, you can see that depreciation, okay, that means is about the value drop. But on the other hand, this interest rate may rise, okay, is another implication. That means the value of the currency raise is a kind of appreciation. So indeed, the possible things that could happen, the possible implications would happen, would be depreciation or appreciation. Now, can you see that? So there are two kinds of possible implications that candidate may offer in their answer. So you can see that in the in the market guideline, it talks about, hey, the exchange rate diagram or the ADAS diagram. It depends. Okay, it depends. Okay, which one did the candidate choose? Either depreciation or appreciation. Now, of course, when you go to discussion of example, okay, so we have to quote the real world example. Now, I'm going to quote an example, okay, in the UK. So this is a real world example, and I would like to also make use of this example to talk about the discussions. Now, the UK, we all know that, okay, there are a lot, okay, there are persistent current account deficit. I'm going to use another example, okay, in the Greece, okay, because I think most of the candidate you are familiarized with the UK example. Okay, so another example you may give is the Greece. Okay, So for Greece, that they also face persistent current account deficits. Okay, so in this example, okay, I would like to talk about how Greece would deal with the deficits. So what would they use? Okay, they try to reduce the expenditure. So this is a kind of fiscal policy. So I'm going to mark it down in the right bottom corner. So it's a kind of fiscal policy. That is to try to reduce the government expenditure. Now, of course, there are some drawbacks. Okay, so the drawbacks would be, the Y would drop, as you can see here, right? The Y would drop, and then the unemployment would raise. Okay, so you can see that so there are a big cost in terms of loss in output and rise in items. Okay, so this is the evaluation point. Okay, so do you think it's worth it? Okay, so another evaluation point you can talk about, of course, is the UK one. Okay, so another evaluation point you can see UK. Okay, although everything they did, okay, they still suffer from the past 15 years. Okay, persistent current account deficits. So these are all for high level paper one. Alright, okay, so after the paper one, so right now we are moving on to the next paper. Okay, so what we're going to do right now, okay, we are going to take a look at paper two. Okay, so this is the high level standard. Okay, so let's take a look for paper two. Okay, so there are lots of terms and the first few questions we have to define. Say for example, A1, so we have to define economic growth. So what we can do is try to make use of, you can make use of the text, okay, to talk about it. Say for example, you can see that it talks about a lot about things like services, industry, blah blah blah. So you may talk about this is about employment, okay. This is about employment. So you may grab the text and just grab some hints from the text, okay, hint from the text, okay, if you do not know the definition. Okay, of course, I would say that this question is quite straightforward. I don't need to read the text to know, okay, it's all about GDP. Okay, but if you put down GDP is wrong, okay, it must be real GDP. Okay, it must be real, okay, in real terms. Okay, no, okay, but not nominal. Okay, for A2, I do not like this how they written the answer. Okay, because what they are writing in the answer is about, okay, so it's about what is the meaning of market efficiency. Okay, so these are market efficiency definition. Okay, so in the answer they would say, hey, if they fail to attain market efficiency, then it will call market failure. Okay, I do not like it. Okay, I do not like this point. Okay, so usually I would say there might say for example, what is market efficiency? That means, okay, MSB, the marginal social benefit, is not equal to the marginal social cost. Okay, that means the gain is not maximized. Okay, so I would do it this way. I do not like the answer at all. Okay, so I would like you to put down my answer. Now for the third this one, okay, for the B1, okay, this is a very straightforward question. Okay, so we have to make use of the information from paragraph 1 here, okay, in the yellow color, and also in the pale green color for the table 1. So we have to make use of these two table to compile the GDP in US PPP, okay, for Nigeria. So let's grab some data. So first of all, okay, let's take a look at paragraph 1. Okay, what do we have? We have the the number of people, okay, 173 million, okay, 173 million people. And next, so we can take a look at the table 1. Okay, so we have 6100 as per capita GDP. So we can times, okay, use the multiple. Okay, so then you can have the answer. Or let me put it this way. So let me put another formula for you. Okay, to be clear, GDP per capita times population, then it would equal to GDP, okay, in total value. So that's it. Okay, not difficult at all. Now in this question, we have to draw a diagram to illustrate the changes in the oil price. So we have to take a look at the text and see what happened. Okay, what happened to the oil price? As you can see that, okay, there is a sharp decline in the price. Okay, so there are two ways that the price would drop. Okay, so the first thing is about the drop in demand. Okay, this is number 1. And number 2, there might be an increase in supply. Okay, so these are the two reasons that are leading to the drop in oil price. So when you draw the graph, okay, you can draw either one. Okay, either the demand drop to the left or the supply shift to the right, Or you may do it like this, okay? You may combine both, okay, demand drop and supply drop. As you can see, after the decrease in demand and increase in supply, the price drops significantly. Let's take a look at part C. You have to make use of a diagram to do it. Now, as you can see in the marking guide, you have to put diagram with accurate written response. So let's take a look at the diagram. Now, when you draw this kind of diagram, make sure that the MSC is higher than the MPC. Can you see that here? Okay, so this is the MSC and the MPC. You can see the MSC is above the MPC, so that would show you a welfare loss area here. Okay, so this one is the welfare loss area indicated as a triangle. Can you see that? So this one would be the welfare loss, and you have to use written response. Okay, that is the spill will create costs that will not be paid by the oil company. Okay, or let me put down some explanation. That means no compensation. Okay, there's no compensation. And also and you can see that for the marking guide, they talk about there are externality of production. Okay, what does it even mean? That means you can see that there is overproduction. Okay, so for Q1 and Q2, Q1, this is the market production level. This is the actual production level. But on the other hand, the optimum, the social optimum level is at Q2. So indeed, you can see that there is overproduction. Okay, can you see that? There is overproduction between Q1 and Q2. So that's the main problem here. Okay, overproduction between Q1 and Q2. Let's go to part D. Okay, now, so for part D, we have to stress about why there is an increase in the inflation rate. So indeed, so what is the meaning of increasing inflation rate? I would say that means there is an increase in the price level. So there are two situations that the price level would increase. The first one would be about there is the AD curve. Okay, so for the AD curve, it will shift up to the right. Okay, when the AD curve shifts up to the right, okay, then the price level will increase. That's the first reason. For the second reason is about the short run AS curve. Okay, for the short run AS curve, if it shifts up to the upward and leftward, and the price level would also increase. So right now I will show you the diagram. In the left hand side of the diagram is about the short run AS curve shift to the left. Okay, so as you can see, then the price level will raise. Okay, now on the other hand, if the AD curve shifts to the right, okay, if the AD curve shifts to the right, the price level would also increase. So these are the diagram that you might need to do the illustration. Remember that you only need to do one. Okay, only one diagram is needed to do it. But you have not completed the question because we have to explain. Okay, so why the AD curve will shift to the right, or why the SRAS curve will shift to the left. So let's take a look at the AD curve. Now, if you talk about the AD curve, you have to talk about so there might be demand pull inflation, because there is an increase in the export. Okay, so this is the first reason that you might give for shifting the AD curve to the right. Now for the short run AS curve shifting to the left, okay, then you may talk about because there is the increase in the cost of production. Okay, so this is the cost push inflation. Now before we go to the end of this question, okay, so make sure you give the reason. Okay, the reason why there is a persistent increase in the price level. Okay, for the short run AS curve, okay, we will call this one cost push inflation. Now on the other hand, for the AD one, okay, we will call it so they will call it demand pull inflation. So make sure you give the correct terms. Okay, highlight in the answer. Okay, demand pull inflation and the cost push inflation. Okay, we will move on to part E. Okay, so that is we have to make use of an exchange rate diagram to talk about how would the increase in the interest rate would affect the fall in the value. So to prevent the fall in value, I will put it in this way. Okay, that means the value would raise, right? Okay, when the value raise, then it will prevent the fall. So first of all, we have to explain what happened to the increase in interest rate. Okay, so what are the effects? In that, the effects would be there is a greater demand for saving in Nigeria. So because they would require area to do so, so they would increase in demand, and then the value would raise. So this is the answer offered by the market guide. I have another way to present it. So think about it. So when you try to save a kind of currency, okay, it depends on the R, right? So the R interest rate indeed reflects the return, right? So when the returns of Naira increases, so then people, okay, so people would convert the money into Naira. That means the demand for Naira will increase, okay. So the value of the Naira would increase. So that's my answer to deduce it. So let's take a look at the exchange rate diagram in the request by the question. Okay, when you draw this type of diagram, make sure you have the correct XY axis, okay, representing Naira. And that so it is also request by the market guide stating that, okay, so candidates, okay, should put their Naira, okay, in their answer for both X and Y axis. So right now we are going to do part E. Okay, we have to use a Lorentz curve diagram to explain, okay, the income inequality. Okay, so first of all, income inequality. So we may also refer to the Gini index, the Gini coefficient. So I guess you all understand, right? You all have the concept. Okay, this one, the Gini index, also reflects income inequality. So in the sense that the bigger the figures, then the more uneven income distribution. So you can see that in this in this table, it reflects that, okay, the income distribution become more and more uneven. So let's grab the answer here. Okay, so in the answer it talks about, hey, because we can see that there is an increase in Gini coefficient, meaning that the income inequality become worsened. So this is the answer. Okay, the income inequality become worse. So next we have to make use of the Lorentz curve to represent the answer. I've put a curve in the right top corner, okay, such that you may see it. Okay, so for this diagram, there's something I would like to mention. So this is the line of equality. The more close to the line of inequality, okay, the better. Okay, the more far away from the line of inequality, the worse. Okay, that means income distribution becomes less equal. Now, as you can see that in this question, the income inequality become worse. So this one is curve number 1, and another one, this one is curve number 2. So we can see that the curve shift outwards. Okay, the Lorentz curve shift outwards, showing that the income inequality becomes worsened. Okay, so let's highlight the answer. There is an outward shift in the Lorentz curve, showing that the income inequality becomes worsened. Now we are going to do part G. Okay, so we have to make use of all the data. Okay, so as you can see here, okay, so there are a lot of data A, B, and C, and then we have to discuss. Okay, so what method, okay, the government employ to achieve the economic growth. Okay, so so the can you see that? Okay, these are the text. Okay, and on the right hand side, okay, so there are a lot of marking guidance. So there are a lot of things we have to discuss. The first thing to discuss is about the word discuss. Okay, so when we talk about the word discuss, okay, will have to give, consider, and balance the field. Okay, so there are a lot of response that you can do. First of all, you can talk about growth. Okay, there are growth with development. Okay, the linkage between growth and development. So what make you there is an economic growth? What are the sources of economic development? So these are the responses that you need to give. So there are a lot of policies in the answer, so we will go through all these. All right, so let's take a look at the answer one by one. So the first one is about the improve in education, stated in text A 5 here. Okay, can you see that here? Okay, so here we can see that there is an improvement in education. This one, so this is the first answer. But when we talk about this policy, okay, is that it really helps? We have to think about it, because in paragraph 1 you can see that there is a public revenue drop. Okay, there is a public revenue drop. That means they may not have enough money. Okay, they may not have enough money to help you to finance the education fund. And next, you can read table 2. Okay, you can read table 2. As you can see that there's no improvement in the adult literacy and adult literacy rate. Okay, and there are other things that worth to mention, like for example, okay, So there are some, the northeast, okay, the northeast, they are harmed, okay, they are harmed by these instructions, okay. So it might lead to the fall in revenue, okay. That means you don't have education fund, okay. And last but not the least, you can see that the reduced interest rate would, make, the reduced interest rate would make encourage investment, but okay, it would, make the value keep falling, okay. So this is what we can see in test C, okay. Test C, okay, the interest rate keep upward trend. So these are the intervention policies evaluation. Let's take a look at another one we called the market-based policies, okay. So it's about reducing direct tax, okay. So of course there are a lot of ways that we have to do the evaluation. For example, okay, you can see that from text A, paragraph 2 and 3, there are a lot of problems in the public sector, okay, like corruption, okay. So I think these are major problems they have to face, okay. And also about security, okay, security, this one. So let's highlight it, okay, security in the green color, security, okay. And there are other possible strategies that you may give, okay. But there are two things that I would like to talk about. If you want to talk about the export-led, okay, the export-led growth, there are some problems, okay. So you may refer to text A, paragraph 2, okay. So there are some problem in the export-led growth, okay. So I will highlight it. Another problem I would like to talk about, if you want to talk about the FDI, okay. The full name of the FDI is called the Foreign Direct Investment. Now, if you want to talk about this one, bear in mind, there are something wrong, okay, in this problem, okay, in this country, okay. That means, okay, there are some, the government usually, okay, they have some problem with the foreign direct investment, so you have to bear in mind. Great, okay, we are moving on to another question. Question 2A. So we have to define the term investment. Okay, indicate here. Okay, so what does it mean by investment? This one, if you do not know, okay, you may try to check out the text, okay, to see is there any tips, okay, is there any tips? But on the other hand, but there's no tips, okay, in this text, okay. So indeed, the definition is about the capital stock, okay, the capital stock, or you may say it's the expenditure by firms on capital, okay. So you must highlight the term capital. Otherwise, you cannot get 2 marks. So if you give machinery, things like this, okay, so 1 mark will be deducted. Okay, you must mention the term capital. Now for part 2, depreciation. Lots of students, they would give a definition that costs 1 mark only. That is the value drop, okay. If you talk about the value drop, there's only 1 mark. Because there is a term called devaluation, okay. You have to make sure that you differentiate between depreciation and devaluation. For devaluation, it is fixed by the market, okay. So it's fixed by the government, okay. That means the government would like to lower the value, okay. So on the other hand, if we talk about depreciation, indeed is a market, okay. It's the result of the market force. So this one, bear in mind, you have to do comparison between depreciation and devaluation for 2 mark. This question is quite straightforward. Okay, you have to compile 2016 here. So here you go, 2016 data. And also you have to compare the 2014 data. That means this one. Okay, this one is the 2014 data. I would say this question is very straightforward. What you need to do, okay, so you have to grab, okay, the the value here, okay, the exchange rate. So you can do the reciprocal, okay. So you do the reciprocal, then you get the answer. Let's take a look at this question. Okay, part 2. So it talks about there is one policy called the minimum price, okay, the minimum price, and you have to draw a demand supply diagram to illustrate it, okay. Of course, so first of all, we have to define the meaning of minimum price, okay. That means it is a price above the equilibrium. So this is the definition. You must give it, okay. So next, okay, after we all know that the price will be set above the equilibrium, then you have to draw the diagram like this, okay. So when you draw the diagram like this, there are things that I would like to remind you, okay. That is, you must, okay, show correctly that this is the quantity supply and this is the quantity demand, where the quantity demand is smaller than the quantity supply. Okay, so this requirement, okay, is not stated by me. Okay, but okay, it is stated, okay, in the marking guide that, okay, you must state clearly in the diagram that the corresponding quantity demand and quantity supplied. Now, in part C, we have to explain, okay, the type of unemployment rate in Chicago. Now, what happened in Chicago? You can read the text. Okay, so you can see that there is a plan to shift, okay, the production to Mexico. Okay, now, okay, so once, okay, the production shift to the Mexico, okay, what happened? Okay, so I would say the demand for labor will drop, right? The demand for labor will drop. So when the demand for labor drop, okay, so what happened? Okay, so then the the quantity of labor would drop. Okay, and if they cannot find another job, that would cause unemployment. Okay, so I would say this is the answer. It's not really that difficult, but when you draw the diagram, make sure that you have correct x-axis and y-axis, okay, as indicated here. Okay, circle it. Okay, can you see that? Okay, so I circled here. So as you can see, for the y-axis, you must do is about the wages, and for the quantities, this one, okay, for the quantity must be indicated as labor. Okay. One more thing to mention. Okay, we have to talk about what are the types of unemployment. Okay, so there is a structural change in the economy, so we will call this structural unemployment. Okay, make sure you remember the types of unemployment before you go to exam. Alright, let's take a look at part D. Okay, so you can see that the country tries to depreciate. Okay, the country tries to do depreciation. So what would it do? What are the effects? Okay, so let's take a look. So once the value is depreciated, that means, okay, the price of the export will become cheaper, right? So there will be more export. Okay, export increase. Now on the other hand, the import will become more expensive. That means that import will drop. So when you take a look, this value x minus m, that is x increase and m drop. So it will lead to the net export increases. Okay, that is the AD curve will shift to the right. So let's take a look at the diagram. Okay, here. Okay, so you can see that once the AD curve shifts to the right, the price level would increase, as indicated here. Okay, so it would cause inflation. Okay, we will move on to part D. It talks about, hey, so what are the methods to make your value, okay, of the currency, okay, don't get dropped. Okay, don't keep dropping. Okay, so of course there's one way to raise the price of a product. Okay, that is the increase in demand. Okay, if you can make the demand for your currency increases, then okay, then we won't face sustained drop. Okay, as you can see. Okay, as you can see in the answer. So there are two ways to do it. The first way is to raise the interest rate. So this is way number one offered by the answer. Okay, that way number two is, okay, you buy it on the wrong. Okay, so the government buy the currency on their own. So this is way number two. I prefer way number one, and I would like to go through. Okay, so the answer. Okay, so once the interest rate is raised, okay, that means, okay, the return. Okay, the return from saving. So I would like you to write it down. Okay, so the return from saving would increase. Then people would demand more. Okay, people would demand more. Then the demand increase in peso would make the exchange rate raise. Okay, so this is my answer. So when you draw the a diagram, make sure that for the XY axis, okay, it's peso. Okay, you have to mark it down. This is called quantity of peso. Okay, so make sure it's a correct unit of the currency. Okay, so for part F, I would like to stress this poverty cycle diagram is new stuff. Okay, new to the syllabus. So I would say it must appear in your coming exam. Okay, it must, okay, 100% appear in the coming exam. So make sure you understand what is it. Okay, so let's take a look over. So what is the meaning of poverty cycle? Okay, so what happened? Okay, so people, okay, so people, they have poor education. Okay, so people education, because they didn't know how to they didn't know how to use a condom. Okay, so they will give a high birth rate. Okay, and no job. Okay, no job, unequal wealth distribution. Okay, that means they have no income, no saving. Okay, no saving, they do not invest in technology. Okay, their productivity is not good, they do not have enough food. Okay, they're malnutrition, that means, okay, they do not go to school, they go to work. Okay, so when they go to work, they have poor education. Okay, they do not know how to how to control the birth rate, and then again and again. So this is the cycle. So how the net increase in foreign direct investment will help it, okay? So we try to reverse. So here, starting from here, okay? So we try to reverse all the stuff, okay? So that means, okay, when the investment increase, so you have to follow, okay? So this is number 1, and then number 2, number 3, number 4, okay? Keep blah, 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 okay? So we have to follow. Number 2, when the investment increase, so people will have higher technology, okay? When they have higher technology, they will have higher productivity, okay? So when they have enough food, okay, so they will go to, you know, and then they can receive better education, they will control their birth, blah, 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 okay? And then, so you have to count, okay? Number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, number 10, okay? And then you go back to here. So this is starting from number 1, okay? So you will go to number 10. Number 10, they will have high income. So when they have high income, they will invest. Then you have to go back. They will invest. Number 11. Okay, so they will go back to it will increase the domestic investment. Okay, so that means the answer would be the increase in foreign direct investment would reverse the flow of events. Okay, foster economic development and also domestic investment. In this part, okay, so part G, we have to use the information, okay, from text D, text E, and text F, to discuss, okay, so what are the possible economic outcomes, okay, from the international trade prospect, okay. So first of all, we have to, understand the word discuss, okay. Discuss, that means, okay, we have to, give a balanced review, okay, include a range of arguments. So there are a lot of response that we can do. First of all, we can talk about what are economic growths, okay, what are economic developments, okay, so what are the different stuff between them and what are the sources, okay. So these are the corresponding response. So let's take a look. So there are a lot of points you can make. Say for example, okay, there is a substantial depreciation as mentioned in test D here, okay. Can you see that here? Okay, so there is a lot, okay, there's a substantial depreciation, okay. Good. Move on. And also you can talk about so what are the evaluation there, okay. So the evaluation would be whether the Marshall linear condition can be met, okay. So this is the evaluation that you may do, okay. Next, so you can talk about other stuff. Say for example in test D here, okay. So there are lots of different monetary and fiscal policy that you might mention here, okay. So there are a lot, so you might mention all these. Also you can talk about there is a decline in the volume of oil production as mentioned here, okay. Decline in the volume of oil production, okay. So there are a lot of stuff that you might mention, okay, in these answer. All right, keep going. In test D paragraph 5, we can see that there is a decline in the global trade and economic growth. And you may also refer to table 3. So there is an increase in external debts, and also there is an increase in the FDI. So all these they are the points that you may make of. So that's all for paper 2. All right, what we're going to do talk about, okay, you are going to move on the high level. Okay, paper 3 section. Okay, the first thing, okay, we have to compute the coffee export per year from country X. So this one, okay, you have to highlight this curve. Okay, so this is the world price. Okay, so the value will be like here. Okay, so you can see that so from this line and then across here. So when you across, this is the demand curve of domestic demand. And also you can see that this is the domestic supply curve. So you can see that, so this is 200, okay, so you can highlight this one, okay, 200, and then this one here, okay, here's 20, right? So from 0 to 20, this is domestic, okay, domestic consumption. And then from 200 to 200, this is export, okay. So the volume will be 180, the volume, okay, so this is the volume, and then you have to times the price 3, this is the price, okay, the circle times 3, then you will have the answer. So for the consumer surplus, you have to take a look carefully. So first of all, for the consumer surplus, okay, we will make use of here this one 2000. This is the domestic one, okay, for domestic consumption only, okay. But on the for the other hand, for the producer surplus, okay, this one, so we have to compute all the all the volume, okay, including both domestic and import. Okay, so this one, okay, will be 200. Next, okay, so we will grab the value, and the value would be of course 0.5, right? Okay, so 0.5 for the consumer, okay, so it will be times 1.6. On the other hand, for the producer, okay, will be times 2. Okay, so then you can grab both the consumer service and producer service, and remember to add them up, okay, to add it up for the social service. Okay, so let me put down the formula of social service. It will be equal to CS plus the PS, the consumer service and producer service. Let's take a look part 3. So we is this given that the price, okay, will not be free, okay, so the price will drop by 0.8. 3 minus 0.8 will be equal to 2.2. So I will start it from here, okay, 2.2 here, okay. So I will draw a new line here, okay. Let me use a red color, okay. So I'll draw a new line here for 2.2. So here, okay, then you can see that the new volume here, okay, so it will minus on here, okay, so this is 120, okay, 120. So we have to be careful, okay. So the integer revenue, as stated, it will be 3 times 200. So this one will be the integer revenue, okay, 3 times 200. But on the new revenue will be 2.2 times 120. So then you grab this answer, okay, 2640000, and then you may compute it, okay. So in this question, I would like you to make sure that when price fall, domestic consumption raise. But okay, the import will fall, okay. So remember that, okay, so the import volume will fall from 200 to 120. This is very, very important. We are moving on to part 4 and part 4, 5, and 6, okay. So there are 3 parts, okay, in this page. So let's take a look part 4. So we have to compute the GDP for 2016, okay. So what do we have here? So we have 1717 as this is the per capita one, okay. So we will use the per capita times the population, okay, then we will have the GDP, okay. So let's take a look the population. So the population will be 1.5 billion as stated here. Then we can have the answer for part 4. Now part 5, okay, we have to define the term current account. So there is the definition would be the inflow from trade and services, okay, plus other income flow and transfer. So there are in the total 4 items, okay, visible trade as goods, invisible trade as services, net income, and lastly net flow. So there are total flow, okay, total 4 items in the current account. Let's move on to part 6, okay. Well, you have to explain the importance of presenting GDP per capita, okay, at the PPP, okay. So indeed at the PPP it is to do comparison, okay, for the real value, okay, ignoring the inflation, okay. So let's put it down, okay. You will ignore the effect of, okay, or neglect the effect of inflation to make sure you have the correct value of the cost of value. Now here we go to this part. In this part, we have to compute the price elasticity of the coffee. So I will put down the formula like this. Okay, so it will be percentage change in the quantity over the percentage change in price. Now, so let's take a look at the price. Okay, it would be from 2.2 drop to 1.40. So this would be the percentage change in price. On the other hand, we have to compute the percentage change in quantity. So we have to go to 1.4 here, okay. Then we have to take a look the quantity, okay, 1.4, the quantity here. So it will be 40, okay. So the quantity at 1.4 okay, would be 40. On the other hand, we will also take a look, okay, at the price 2.2. So what would be the quantity? Okay, so the quantity would be 30. Okay, so the quantity raised, okay, from 30 to 40. So you may compute the changes. Okay, it would be 33.33%. Okay, then after that you can compute the answer in this way. Okay, 0.92. Okay, we are moving to next part. Okay, the part A. Okay, so why would the government should be concerned with the fall in the coffee price? So of course there are a lot of reasons. Okay, first of all, okay, I will go through. It's about the export earnings. Okay, there are a drop in the export earnings, and the current account. Also the derived demand. Okay, the derived demand. Okay. So these are all the things that, okay, the government should consider. All right. Okay, we are moving on to the next part. Okay, so what are the policies that to recommend for promoting the coffee? Okay, so of course the first one is to make use of money like subsidies. Okay, it's the way to do it. The second thing is to raise it by tariff. Okay, that means, okay, we will make use of government intervention. Okay, other than subsidies, okay, there are other interventions like tariff. Of course, there are other things than market intervention. For example, okay, so you can establish some trade barriers. All right, so I would say these are, okay, common and effective way to do it. Great. Okay, we are moving to question 2. Okay, so we are still in the high level, okay, section, but this is from the paper 3. Okay, paper 3 high level. So I've put the question here and the answer here. So we'll start with A1. For A1, what we're going to do, we have to compute the annual income tax, okay, paid by tax year. Okay, so let's take a look at the income. Okay, so you can see that from tax year. Okay, so the income will be 88,000. So so we have to make use of this one. Okay, so 14,000 to start with, 34,000, 22,000. And the remaining, okay, the remaining income, okay, over 70,000. Okay, this one, that means 88,000 minus 70,000. Then will be this one. So then you can add all these up, add up. Then you will have this answer. Okay, so let's go to part 2. So for part 2, we have to calculate the general sales tax, okay, paid by him. So let's take a look at the tax rate of the general sales tax. It would be 15% charge. Now before we compute, first of all, you have to be very careful of the percentage of YD spent. Now this YD stands for disposable income. So we do not, okay, make use of 80,000, this one, to do the to do the calculation. We have to make use of this one minus the taxation here. Okay. So we have to minus this one. So we'll have the disposable income, which is 68040. This one, okay. So otherwise, okay, you may have the wrong answer. Next, you can see that they only spend 80%. So we would do it like this. Okay, we'll have 54432. Okay, so 54432, and then we would do 15% sales tax. Okay, so this was 15% at the top. Okay, in the denominator 1 plus 15%, then you will have the answer 7099.83. Okay, we'll move on to number 3. So we have to compute the average tax rate, okay, paid by both people. Okay, so so let's go to 𝗵𝗃 first. Okay, so 𝗵𝗃, the income is 28,000, so I will put it here, and for taxi, the income is 88,000, I will put it here. Next, for the total tax paid, okay, for 𝗵𝗃, okay, 7060.87. Okay, so it's easy. For our tax year, okay, the things will become a little bit complicated. First of all, okay, so we have this one, 19960 from here, okay, from A1, and also we'll have 7099.83 from A2. Okay, so I will mark it down again. So for tax year, okay, we have to make use of part from A1, answer from A1 and A2 to compute the answer. Let's go to part 4 and part 5. Now for part 4, we have to referring to the changes in the Gini coefficient. as you can see, the Gini coefficient raised a little bit, right? Okay, you can see that right here, raised. So we have to put down the changes. Say for example, okay, the tax system become less progressive. There are lots of indirect taxation. Okay, these indirect taxation, they're usually regressive. Okay, for most indirect tax, okay, they are regressive in nature. There are other things that you can talk about. Say for example, okay, some welfare payment have been cut, like transfer payment. Okay, so that means for example, the unemployment benefit. Okay, so when these are cut, of course the income distribution will become more uneven. At one point, it's worth mentioning is the bargaining power of the organized labor. Okay, so this one, okay, that means we will refer it back to the trade union. Okay, so you have to go back to this chapter to have a further understanding. Now for part 5, okay, we have to explain the impact if the government increased the rate of the GST. Now I would like you to bear in mind that GST is a kind of indirect tax. Okay, it's a kind of indirect taxation here. Okay, so you have to bear in mind so the indirect taxation to the effect. Okay, now say for example, okay, for indirect tax, okay, that means okay, it paid on any for goods services they need to pay, right? So it's a regressive in nature, as I've mentioned. So what you need to do, you need to define and explain what is the meaning of regressive. So as you can see in the answer, okay, that means okay, the goods and services, okay, will constitute a smaller percentage for those who have a higher income. So this would be the effect of regressive tax. So I would like you to bear in mind, okay, and also this will make therefore the income more unequal, okay, and it would increase the Gini coefficient. Now for this part, you must define the meaning of market failure. Now for market failure, that means okay, there are externality. Okay, now say for example, okay, people over consumption or production of certain kinds of goods, and there are externality exist. Okay, so you have to talk about so what are the externalities in this question. So as you can see here, so there are high prevalence of diabetes. So these, okay, so these are the social costs or external cost added to the society. Okay, so people ignore this one. So therefore, okay, there are market failure. That's all for this part. Okay, so right now we are moving on to the standard level questions. Okay, so we will cover all these questions one by one. So here you go. This is the standard level question A. So in this question, we are going to talk about why would the government try to impose a price ceiling. Now, first of all, we must give the definition of price ceiling. Okay, that means it is the maximum price set. Okay, so it will be set below the equilibrium. Okay, to make it effective. The next, okay, why would the government make such decision? A maximum price. Okay. So that means, the price set, the price set must be below the equilibrium, right? Okay. So why would the government make the price below the equilibrium? Now, say for example, okay, the first thing is about the equity, okay? So it's to try to make sure that equity exists, okay? So it will be fair to those poor people, okay? To be fair, okay? So they can buy what they have, okay? The next one, of course, is about the accessibility, okay? So these services, say for example, education or medical or housing. So these services, okay, or these are important stuff, so they are available to the poor. The next, we are going to take a look at the diagram. So candidate must indicate that okay, this is the maximum price in diagram, and the differences between QD and QS. Okay, so this is the effect of the price ceiling. Okay, that means a shortage will be created. Okay, we are going to part B. So we are going to discuss the consequences to different stakeholders. So there are a lot of stakeholders I would like to discuss, like consumers, producers, government. Okay, so these are the major three stakeholders. Next, we are going to talk about the impact to each. Okay, Now, if you recall, in part A, we've discussed that, okay, there are shortage and lower prices, okay? These are the good, I would say these are not good, okay? These are the common effect, okay, we've discussed for price ceiling. So there are other things that, okay, we might discuss. Like in part A, we've talked about, the equity thing, okay? In part A, we talk about the equity for the poor family and the accessibility, okay? Like for food, okay? So these are very important stuff. There are other things that we haven't discussed in part A, including number one, unofficial market. Number two, reduce the quality of goods, okay? So these are other common possible consequences of a price ceiling. Now, for the producer, the major thing must be discouraged of supplying those goods, okay, because the price is set below equilibrium. So remember that the price must be set below equilibrium under price ceiling. Now, also the functioning of the price signal, okay, is the impact of the function of price signal is weakened because the government control the price rather than the market signal. And for the government, there are need for intervention to overcome the shortage, okay? So as you can see, there is a shortage. So what are the need? Say for example, we can use some non-price competition, okay, like first come first served, okay? So these are the way for the government to do it. Now for the diagram, okay, for part A we have given it, so we don't have to give it, okay. So the major main point in this question, okay, so that means, okay, we have to give real world examples such as rent, okay. So as say for example, in the housing market in the UK, so there are rent control in UK. So in this part, so there are shortage in UK, and also one thing I would like to highlight is about the reduced quality of goods. So in UK, there are no maintenance of the flats, okay, due to the price ceiling. Now, we keep moving on to the standard level, okay. So two possible causes of deflation. First of all, of course, we have to define deflation. So there is a persistent, okay, you must have the word persistent, okay. Persistent fall in general. Okay, you must have the term general, okay? General price level. So that would be the definition. Next, okay, so the two possible causes, okay. So we are in this answer, we are going to make use of the ADAS model to illustrate the changes in price level. So there are two possible reasons. Number one reason is the AD curve shifting to the left, okay? For AD curve, it's equal to C plus I plus G plus NX, okay? So you can see that in the answer, it talks about C, consumption, I, investment, G, government expenditure, okay? So these are the first reason I would like to talk about. The second reason is shifting the AS curve to the short run AS curve to the rightwards, okay? So there are a lot of reasons, like say for example, the cost of production drop, okay, the cost of production drop, then okay, the short run AS curve will shift to the right, as indicated in your answer, like here, falling cost. Now, and last but not the least, you have to draw the diagram, okay. You may take a look the right bottom corner, okay. You may draw either one. AD curve shifts to the left, and or the short run AS curve shifts to the right. So all these will make the price level drops. Alright, okay, in the part B, standard level, we have to talk about the monetary policy in achieving no inflation. Now, of course, we have defined inflation, right? So this is the persistent rise in general price level, okay? So you must have the term persistent and also the term general. Then next, so what is the meaning of monetary policy? There are a lot of monetary policy, like you have to take a look, you have to adjust the reserve ratio. You may also adjust the discount rate, that is the interest rate borrowed from the central bank by the commercial bank. And of course there are others, like the open market operation, that is the government buy bonds or sell bonds, okay, to do it, okay, to adjust the money supply. So the explanation, okay, so evaluate the effectiveness of monetary policy. So in your answer, it talks about, okay, it would not burden the government budget. So why would the answer put in this way? Because this is a kind of comparison to fiscal policy, okay? So for fiscal policy, we all know that it would, it consists of T, taxation, and government expenditure. So if the government make use of the fiscal policy, okay, it might, okay, adjust the G, that is the government expenditure. Okay, next we are going to talk about the effectiveness, okay, the weaknesses, okay. It might depends on the type of inflation. Now, for example, okay, for demand pull inflation, now, of course, okay, the monetary policy can deal with it. Okay, now next we're going to talk about the diagram. So we have to illustrate a contractionary monetary policy. Okay, what does it mean by contractionary monetary policy? I have to put down some notes here. Now for contractionary monetary policy, okay, now for example, okay, when the money supply drops, okay, the interest rate would increase. So that would make the C and the consumption expenditure and the investment expenditure drop. Then the aggregate demand will drop. Then both the price level and the aggregate output will drop. So that's what we call contraction monetary policy. Now you can see the diagram. Okay, so when the AD curve shifts to the left, the price level will drop. Okay, so this is the diagram we need to do. Now, so here, when you synthesis, okay, so remember that as I mentioned, you have to compare with fiscal policy as an alternative. Okay, so this is one of the main points I have to talk about. Last but not the least, we have to make use of some real-world example. Okay, now for example, for the U.S., okay, so I will give an example of the U.S., the Federal Reserve. Okay, so in recent years, okay, so the Federal Reserve announced the increase in interest rate. Okay, so and then the C and I drop, the AD drop, and then the P and Y drop to combat the inflation in the U.S. We'll move on to question 3. So this is from the standard level. Okay, now there are two factors affecting the currency in the floating exchange rate. That means, okay, the value is determined by the market force. Okay, what does it mean by the market force? That means the demand and supply. Okay, so this is what we call the floating currency system. So you all know that, right? So it would depend on the demand, including the demand for export and imports. Okay, and also supply. Okay, say for example, okay, the portfolio flow. Okay, and remittance. So in your answer, I would say, hey, you have to put down the factors affecting demand and supply. Now for the diagram, it's easy, right? So you have to put down, okay, so this is the price of a currency for the y-axis. This is the quantity of a currency, and we have a demand, supply, and then this will determine the price and the quantity transact of that kind of currency. Next, we have to discuss the consequence of a fall in exchange rate. You have to define the meaning of exchange rate. That means the price of one currency in terms of another currency. So this would be the definition of exchange rate. Next, I think you have to define the meaning of fall. Okay, the fall, that means I would say depreciation. Okay, so that means the value drop. Okay, the next question is, why would the value drop? There are two major reasons. Okay, so for reason one, that is the supply increase. Okay, for reason number 2, it would be the demand drop. Okay, reason number 2, the demand drop. So these are the reasons leading to depreciation. Okay, next, so what are the consequences? Okay, I would like you to refer to this part. In this explanation, so there are a lot of things I would like to discuss. First of all, it's about the changes in the price level. Think about it. If the aggregate demand is stimulated because of the increase in net export, then the price level will increase. So this is number one. Then for number two, the economic growth, as we said, because of the increase in net export, okay, the AD might increase and it would lead to an increase in aggregate output. Of course, there are other things that we might discuss. Employment. So think about it. For the employment, it is the derived demand for labor. So once the output increase, okay, so once the output increase, then the labor demand will increase too. So this would give a favorable effect on the employment. So this is the third thing I would like to discuss. And the fourth thing is that you have to discuss the quantities of import and export depending on the elasticity. Now this one is a little bit complicated because it depends. Okay, did you understand the Marshall linear condition? Okay, it talks about, okay, only if the elasticities are high enough, that will bring you a favorable effect to the current account. Last one, okay, effect on competitiveness and change in government policy. Okay, I think these, okay, are all related to the exports and imports, okay, that we discussed. Okay, it depends on the quantity of exports and imports. Next, okay, we have to go to the discussion. Okay, it talks about the magnitude of the reduction in exchange rate to the growth, okay, to the unemployment. Okay, so there's one thing highlighted by the answer is about, hey, how about those tourism and agriculture? So it really depends on the countries, okay, experience a reducing exchange rate. Let's say, for example, in 2022, the Japan faced a serious drop in the value of the currency, okay. But however, the tourism is not boost, okay. It's not boost due to due to COVID, okay, because of the COVID. So it really depends on other non-economic factors, right? Okay, because of COVID, okay, airports are shut down. Okay, even though the value of Japan currency drop. Okay, for tourism, there are no boost, no favorable effect. So there are lots of videos in this channel. They're all free, and for the IB economics and other subtopics. Okay, feel free to check out.